All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
So they made you a star. Now your head's in a cloud. And you're walking down the street with your feet off the ground. They read in the press all about your success.
And good evening, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada. If you would like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to find out more about the X Zone Radio Show and what we're up to, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com. And to watch the X Zone TV channel that is exclusive to our good friends on Simul TV, visit www.simultv.com. X Zone Nation, my guest this hour is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show before, Elijah Brooks. And this hour, we're going to be talking about the will of God in human history. Joining me now is Elijah Brooks. And Elijah, welcome back to the X Zone.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Elijah, and what was it that set you on your path to doing the books you do and to talking about God and how God has been present in human throughout history?
First of all, we mortals all share a common fear, which is the fear of death.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, I didn't fear death because I was just certain that if I died, I would just come right back.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I was around 10 or 11 years old, my elders had listened to what they talked about and how they viewed things. I just didn't believe them anymore. They believed that thunder was caused by clouds bumping into each other and all this other nonsense. And by the time I got into high school, I was a full-blown atheist. I just couldn't believe any of it.
Really?
It was just nonsense. And then, we go through life and we go through stressful interludes. And at one point, I realized I have to rethink this because this is a matter of survival of the fittest, and I cannot survive without there being a God in the universe. If it's just that simple.
But what made you so sure?
When I was young, I took a lot of drugs. I mean, I didn't take as many as a lot of my friends did, but I took LSD. I
Sure.
took a lot of pot. On LSD, I had a friend of mine who was flat-out genius. He was a brilliant guy who was getting his master's in international finance, walked around in a suit and tie, and took LSD. And none of his professors knew this, basically. One time, he and I and a couple other friends, we all took some together, like a half a dose, and tripped around, had fun. We were going to school in Gainesville at the University of Florida at the time. And afterwards, everybody else would come home and go to sleep and just fall asleep. I could never do that. I would come home and I would just be wired up like on amphetamine or something. So this one particular night, I'm laying there, trying to, okay, I'm going to have to just content myself with my fantasies and thoughts. And all of a sudden, at one point, I found myself like floating through the cosmos, out amongst the stars, looking around, and realizing that, in my view, all this universe was just dead matter, and there was no soul to it, and there was nobody to pray to plead to ask for help, to communicate with. And this sense of loneliness came over me, which was so overwhelming that I found myself heading for one of those LSD crash and burns that some people would go through and never come back. And I realized that I had to rethink this. First of all, I had to get off that train of thought and come back to it in the morning, which I did. The next morning when I woke up, I realized if my belief system leads me into such vulnerability as that, then I can't survive. I need a different view of the universe, and I need to revisit this whole idea. Maybe I was hasty. Maybe I cut off the possibility of there being a God to the universe too quickly.
Right.
So I started rethinking it, and I kind of eventually found my way back. Now I have no doubt. I mean, I've had some experiences that I would be considered a nutcase by a lot of people if I told them what my visions have been. But okay, they're my visions. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. I know what I heard.
Okay, the experience you had, many people within the metaphysical community would call it an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, pretty much that night it was, because I was out there floating amongst the stars. It was beautiful until all of a sudden it was terrifying.
So what was it that you found so terrifying? Was it the fact that it was a void, that there was no other present, that you were alone, a singular object in the vast universe?
Exactly. The loneliness. The loneliness was overwhelming.
All right, so how did
and
you...
the pointlessness of it.
Okay, so how did you come to the realization that there was some bigger power out there, that you were not alone, that you were part of something greater?
It wasn't an overnight revelation. I had to find my way back. I had to revisit my thoughts and beliefs and how I'd come to that conclusion to begin with. And it took me a while. One of the things that was kind of a Rubicon for me was I went and lived in Israel for a couple of years, about 2 years after this. And one of the things that really began to change my mind on this is I started thinking about the power of belief, the power of faith, and the fact that the Jews had survived for 3,000 years with the earth throwing everything that it could at them, and they had survived on the strength of their beliefs. So there must be something to it.
And we all know that belief. We all know that belief is the strongest power in the universe.
Say it again, sorry?
I said belief is the strongest power in the universe.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it can be put to good ends or bad ends, depending on what the people that believe.
Mm-hmm. So how did your living in Israel change your life? When did the epiphany come?
The reason I went to Israel actually didn't have so much to do with God. I mean, by this time I already believed in God. Mm-hmm. So my trip there was, I had known about global warming since I took my first junior college physics course when I was like 19 years old. And I looked around at the politicians in my country, and as a matter of fact, politicians around the world. I was looking for somebody to realize what an existential threat and danger global warming was for the human race. And it's like they didn't even know it existed. And I figured if they're not going to fix it, I guess I'm going to have to do what I can to fix it. So, when you're young, you believe you can do anything, and I believed I could do that. Mm-hmm. I was going to go to Israel, somehow or other ingratiate myself into the people. I wound up converting to Judaism by means of the Orthodox rabbinate, not because I wanted to be an Orthodox Jew, but because I wanted to get into politics in Israel and be able to have a voice finally in world ecology, among other things.
So everything seems to be very scattered. When did you start focusing in on certain things?
They all kind of came together. I mean, God gave us this beautiful planet, and we're trashing it, so that was part of the motivation there. I don't know, I had an idea what I had to do, a sense of responsibility, and I went for it. and in the house to say it.
And did you accomplish it?
No, I didn't. But I learned a tremendous amount when I was living there. First of all, I learned Hebrew, and I learned a lot of things by reading parts of the Bible in Hebrew, because among other things, I realized how much I had been misled by really bad translations of what Scripture actually says. For instance, the word Messiah. The word Messiah does not mean Savior. It's a transliteration of the Hebrew word Mashiach, and it means to anoint. And the function of anointing, or the symbolism of anointing, was basically like coronating a prince. It established a civil identity in the eyes of the population that this person was in this role. It was used for the priests, it was used for the kings, and it was used for the prophets.
All right, Elijah.
All anointed.
All right, Elijah, we're going to have to take a break here, so please stand by. Exonation, our guest this hour is Elijah Brooks, and if you'd like to get any of his books, go to Amazon.com and type in Elijah Brooks. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada, right on the shores of Lake Erie in the beautiful region of Niagara. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break, and you can always email me. Don't forget this, X-Zone Nation. You can always email me, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
After all you've been through, tell me what will you do when you find yourself out in the cold? Tell me. Tell me.
Right up, ladies and gentlemen, to the Morgan Show on Well, she was born in a fun house. She grew up on a wild mouse, driving bumper car around the ground, and a big rig from town to town. She sleeps on a roller coaster. She looks like a girly poster. She did both Barnum and Bailey at these 3 shows daily. She's a carnival girl. She's more fun than a tilt-a-whirl. She's a laugh in the dark. She's an amusement park.
And welcome back, everyone. That is Michael J. McCurley out of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I've had the pleasure of working with MJM, as he's known, when we were doing the voice tracking for Canada's Creepy Canada TV series. And the name of that song, She's an Amusement Park. Oh, my goodness. He's a great guy. And back in the day, we were doing work for the International Institute for Spinal Regeneration, and we did a fundraiser at a location in Hamilton, and Mike J. McCurley and all the guys from Band from Heaven came down and donated their time. So did the wrestler Iron Mike Sharp, as well as, what was his name? He did the Beast. I'll have to look that up and let you know. Our guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Elijah Brooks. And if you'd like to find out more about Elijah, or if you'd like to get his books, they're available on Amazon.com. Now, Elijah, how did learning Hebrew help you in your research, in your quest?
Because I could find out what words really meant. And like, I'm going to tell you something about myself that I don't go around bragging about, but I'm gay.
Okay.
And I went through a lifetime suffering for this subject. And I decided, since the rationalizations for homophobia, a lot of them come out of the Bible, the way people interpret it. So I decided I'm going to read it. I'm going to see what the Bible actually does say about homosexuality. And to my surprise, it doesn't say anything.
Why
I found rather interesting.
Well, I think that the Bible has been manipulated throughout the years to get what religious organizations want. For example, they eradicated women. They did everything they could to keep women out of the boys' club. It's no, and then when it came to the LGBT group, they did the same thing back then. Nobody's perfect, and nobody's got the right to play God except God himself.
Yep.
So we're all from the same tree, so to speak, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, so I personally, my friend, I cannot understand the prejudice. If I had my way, and I'm going to tell you something, my listeners know this. I don't know if you've ever heard me discuss this. I would take all the churches and I'd say, all right, for example, let's take the Vatican, okay? You got to sell it. You've got to sell it. You don't need it. Jesus Christ didn't need a multi-billion-dollar state of his own. You don't need all these statues. Yep. You don't need all the gold. Sell it and give it to the people who need it.
Yep.
The same thing with the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, the synagogues. Let's get religion back to basics.
There's a passage in the Old Testament that talks about the golden age of Israel. And it says the golden age of Israel was when there was no religion, there were no forced prayers, but everybody just did what was right in God's eyes.
One thing God did that many people miss it as the Rosetta Stone of religion, in my opinion, the Ten Commandments. You follow the Ten Commandments, you can't go wrong. It's that plain. It's that simple. So, my friend, as you can see, you're not alone. I know people around the world who feel the same way you and I do.
Yep.
Tell me something. In all your learning, in all the research that you've done, being on your quest, and God bless you for that. I know that, if I'm not mistaken, the Torah are the first 4 or 5 books of the Old Testament. Am I correct?
Yes, the first 5 books, actually.
First 5 books, right. Now, even though the Hebrew religion does not acknowledge Jesus Christ as the Son of God, do you believe that there will be a second coming? And do you believe that there will be the apocalypse?
Oh, we're on the verge of the apocalypse right now.
I agree. Yep.
And as far as the second coming, I do believe that. We live in a multifaceted universe. We live in a multidimensional universe. One thing I studied electrical engineering, but that's what I got my degree in. But I also know some things about physics. And when I came across string theory, it suddenly dawned on me one day, that's the secret to understanding life after death and out-of-body experiences and stuff like that, because we are multidimensional beings. We don't exist just in three dimensions in time. We exist in multiple dimensions. So when the part of us that is in this dimension dies or ceases functioning, there's still something of us left. That's why people that come back from death can recount their experiences, because they didn't really die. Just the part that's existential in this world died.
In your opinion, does this explain reincarnation? Does this also explain past life experiences that people have?
Yeah, actually it does.
Now, according to the scriptures, Christians and Jews share. Who was the first Messiah?
Moses. Because Moses is told by God to anoint his brother Aaron. The word Messiah, or Mashiach in Hebrew, is both a passive and an active verb. So if you anoint somebody, you Mashiach them, you Messiah them. That makes you Messiah. If you are anointed, you are Messiah. And then you have the power to anoint somebody after you. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. But is an anointing like a baptism?
Sort of, except they used oil. They
In-
poured some oil on the guy's head and rubbed it around, and presto changer, you've been anointed.
I would
I don't know,
imagine.
there must have been like a formula of prayers that you said, or God knows, I don't know. But I do know what the word itself means.
Right. I was just wondering that because there are many places where anointings had been done where there was no immediate water. And I was wondering if that is why that the anointing might be associated with a baptism, because in the days when Jews traversed the deserts, oil was one of the staples. So, just a question for you.
Yeah. Well, anointing was done with oil. It wasn't done with water.
Right. I know that. That's why I was saying, because where a lot of the anointings happened, there was no easy access to water. There weren't many rivers, or there wasn't, if you were inland and so on. Doing your research, what was the most amazing revelation that you discovered?
Oh, Lordy. When I was in Israel, I had decided that I wanted to have some sort of a spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to understand what Jesus went through and what that whole experience must have been like. And did I ever, because I had a friend of mine from Los Angeles that left the kibbutz, went back to the States, and I had asked her if she would send me some LSD when she got there, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left the kibbutz where I was living, where I went through the conversion and everything, well, actually, I went through the conversion on an Orthodox religious kibbutz, but I went back to live at my old kibbutz afterwards. She sent me some LSD. I got down to Eilat, and I'm working on a construction site down there, tying structural steel to poured concrete. The guy that I was working, they told me, if you work for an Arab, and one of my best friends was an Arab, so I'm not anti-Arab by any means, but they said, if you work for Arabs down there, make sure you get paid every single day, because they will rob you if you don't. And dumbass me, I had to put it to the test. I had to trust and so forth.
Yeah.
Guy I worked for wound up fleecing me over half of what he owed me.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm finally there with nothing to do for a few days, because I had to get my grandma to send me some money so I could get the hell out of the country by this time, because it wasn't going to happen any other way. So I figured, okay, I'm going to take some of this stuff, and I'm going to have myself a spiritual revelation of some sort.
All right, Elijah, we're going to have to
Yes.
do a bit of a cliffhanger here, because I have to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. So please stand by. Great talking to you again. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find any of Elijah's books, they're on Amazon. Just visit Amazon.com or Amazon.ca and type in his name, Elijah Brooks. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Send me your emails, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or visit our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, the X-Zone TV channel is exclusive to SimulTV. Visit SimulTV's great website, www.simultv.com. And welcome back, everyone. Our guest this hour is Elijah Brooks. And if you'd like to get any of Elijah's books, they're all available on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. Elijah, who are the money chain? Oh, let's get on with your cliffhanger over here, because we were talking about the experience you had in Israel. Somebody had sent you some LSD. You had also asked somebody in your family to send you some money, because that's the only way you could get out of there. So please continue.
Yeah, I got to make one correction real quick there.
Sure.
If they want to find my book, there's more than one Elijah Brooks on Amazon.
Oh, there
There's
is?
The Lives of Elijah Brooks, plural. In other words, reincarnation.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah.
The experience I had was, first of all, it was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realized that I was in a city-state that if I got caught intoxicated with a hallucinogenic drug, I would go to jail. So I had the double jeopardy of that fear on top of the fact that I was in a place where I was really vulnerable. I mean, I had nobody for support. I had no escape hatch, basically.
But as a U.S. citizen, wasn't the embassy available to you, or the consulate?
Not where I was. I was in Eilat, which is like the wild west of Israel at the time.
Oh, okay, all right.
So there was nobody who was going to rescue me. That was that story. The epiphany of this story was that as I'm walking along down the sidewalk, it was like I could feel the fear that Jesus felt walking down that path towards his crucifixion. I could feel it as though it was going to happen to me, and I knew what that was. And that was one of the things I was looking for. I wanted to know, what did he suffer? And it was god-awful. I mean, I can't even describe the feeling.
Okay. I'm trying to understand the comparison between you being lonely in an area where you had no support, compared to that of Jesus Christ, who's carrying a cross, who's been convicted, who has been belittled, who had all the apostles and Mary Magdalene, his mother, his uncle. I'm sorry, I don't understand the connection here.
I don't put myself on the same level as him. What I'm saying is I felt that fear. I mean, a lot of people that go through these rituals where they get themselves actually nailed to something or hung up from a cross,
right?
They want to know, what did he feel? And if you take LSD, you can feel some horrible things, I'm going to tell you. Anyway, I don't want to get in trouble by...
Sure, all right.
You know.
Yeah, I can understand that. So the experience you felt that you believe must have been the feeling that Christ felt on the way to his crucifixion. How did this change your life?
It didn't. I mean, once I got through it, I vowed, first of all, I'm never taking LSD again, ever, 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 ever.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't worth it. Whatever insight I got was not worth the pain and the harm that I did to my own physiology. But I got the point. I understood. You know, you can't know what it's like to be murdered until you're murdered, and especially the way he was murdered. But at least I got some insight. So I'm not putting myself on the same level at all.
Tell me about the money changers that Jesus had such a beef with.
Yeah. People don't understand what the money changers were there for, what they were doing. By the time Jesus came along, the Jews were spread all over the Mediterranean. They had gone as far as into Spain. They were heading off into the Indian subcontinent. They were down into the Arabian Peninsula, just like the Arabs have spread out, basically. And just like the Arabs want to go back to Mecca for the Hajj, to do something that makes them feel like they're communicating with God, whatever, the Jews had that same kind of feeling. They wanted to get back to Jerusalem at some point in their life, and they wanted to make a sacrifice. Here's the thing about the money and the time. Interest lending was specifically forbidden by the laws of Moses. It says you shall not lend money on interest. The money changers were in Jerusalem because people were coming back from all these foreign countries and bringing their foreign currency with them, but the cost of the sacrifices was spelled out in Hebrew currency. A lamb costs this much, a dove costs this much, a rabbit costs this much, whatever other animal costs this much. The prices were set. It was essentially a commodities-based currency. The value of the currency being based on the value of the animal. The money changers, however, were charging interest for their transactions. So that right there, and the fact that they were doing it on the temple grounds right under the nose of the priests, which incidentally were appointed by the Romans by this time. They weren't even legitimate priests. It sort of put the kibosh on the whole situation there. And that's why he wanted them out of there. This was something that should have been being handled by the priesthood itself. And it should have been being handled without charging interest for it. So driving them out, that he just considered that his sacred duty, I guess.
So basically, they were like a currency exchange.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What's your take on the Exodus?
Oh, yes. Incidentally, if anybody wants my book, they're going to have to go to the Lives of Elijah Brooks, because there's more than one Elijah Brooks, it turns out, on Amazon. My book is now in its second edition. I'd written the first edition, and I'd given it to some friends of mine, and one of my friends lent it to a friend of his who read it. I went to visit him one day while she was visiting him, and she informed me that she had enjoyed it, but that I had made some mistakes, because what I do is the first half of the book I retell, to make my point, I use incidents in the Old Testament and the New Testament to tell my story, basically.
Right, sure.
And one of the things I messed up was I messed up the family relationship between Lot and Abraham. I don't know how I got it wrong, but I got it wrong. And she pointed it out to me. And I thought, well, that's embarrassing. So what I made up my mind to do was I'm going to go back and reread the parts that I got my text from and fix it.
Okay.
So I'm reading, one of the things I was going to read is the story of Exodus. I was reading Exodus, and I got to the story of the plague of darkness. As I'm reading the plague of darkness, the narrator says, it was a darkness you could feel. As soon as I read that line, I knew exactly what had happened. Remember Mount St. Helens?
Yeah, sure.
Mount St. Helens completely blocked the sun. You could walk outside and you could not see your nose in front of your face. That's how black it was. And I remember listening to this one interview. There's a newscaster walking along with one of the locals up there, and the guy that's being interviewed says, it's amazing. You can't see the ash in the air, but you can feel it on your skin as it brushes by your skin.
Mm-hmm.
A darkness you could feel. Immediately, I understood this was a volcanic explosion. Let's go online and do some research on volcanoes.
Okay.
And it turns out there's an island in the Mediterranean south of Greece called Santorini that exploded just about the perfect time to fit with the story of Exodus and the story of the darkness specifically, with a force of, Mount St. Helens went off with like 120 megatons. Santorini blew with like over 2,000 or 3,000 megatons. It was a phenomenal blast. There's a scale of volcanic force that goes from 1 to 9. A 9 is a shield volcano, and that's like, Yellowstone. When Yellowstone blows, that's the end of life on Earth for a substantial portion of the planet. The next step down from that, though, is the level that Santorini was. When Santorini blew, it created the myth for the plague of darkness and a lot of the plagues of Egypt.
All right, Elijah, we're going to have to take our break
Is that a
here.
commercial?
Yeah, so please stand
Go
by.
ahead.
Exonation, Elijah
Okay.
Brooks is our special guest. And if you'd like to get his book, it's available Amazon.com/The Lives of Elijah Brooks. That's the name. And we'll be back. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
I see you through the smoky air. Can't you feel the weight of my stare? You're so close, but still a world away.
Lady love, your love is peaceful like a summer's breeze. My lady love, with love that's tender as a baby's touch, you give me all of the things that I need so much. You're my world, lady love.
Elijah Brooks is our guest, Exonation, and if you'd like to find Elijah's books, they're available on Amazon. Just visit Amazon.com/The Lives of Elijah Brooks, and his books will be there. All right, so when it comes to the rest of the story of the Exodus, how accurate is it?
I didn't hear that last word. The rest of the story of the what?
When it comes to the story of the Exodus, all right,
Oh.
how accurate is it?
When I lived in Israel, I lived on the kibbutz, a religious kibbutz outside of Tel Aviv one time for about 6 months, and we had a plague of frogs. I've never seen so many frogs in my life. You literally could not walk down the sidewalk without stepping on them, no matter how hard you tried. So I think some of it was stuff that just naturally occurs periodically, and then some of it was like from that explosion of that volcano.
So when we're looking at the entire Bible, the Old Testament
Yes.
as well as the New Testament, how much is real and how much is folklore?
I have no way of quantifying that. I know there is folklore, and I know there is stuff that actually happened. That people they didn't have spy satellites. They didn't have things orbiting the planet
Right.
to tell them what was going on when there's a volcano going off, for instance. But a lot of it was real events, and then a lot of it was stuff that got exaggerated or misinterpreted, basically.
A lot of stories in there like Aesop's fables, right? They all have meanings. They all have messages. They all have lessons.
It's nice to find the meaning in life. That's what we're all looking for. So we look for the lessons, that's for sure.
Now, you were talking about string theory earlier in the hour. How do you see string theory answering a lot of questions?
One of the reasons that string theory came into existence was because there was just too much going on to explain in a three-dimensional plus time universe, and they discovered that if they would just add some more dimensions, that the equations would work out better for some reason. I'm not an expert on string theory. I just know that it postulates that there are between 10 and 12 more dimensions than what we see.
Right.
And one day it just sort of occurred to me, wouldn't it be interesting if part of our existence, people die and come back, and they have experiences where they can see themselves being operated on a table. That means they're there someplace. They're just not visible to the people that are in the operating room. And for the longest time, doctors would just discount this and, oh, poor dear, you just had a hallucination. But eventually doctors began to realize that they were hearing the same story over and over and over again with various minor differences. So they began to take it seriously that, yes, there is something going on. And for me, when I began to understand a little bit about string theory, I realized that would explain so much. What if we are, all of us, multidimensional beings, but our sensory input from this one three-dimensional plus time universe that we inhabit is so overwhelming that we can't see the rest of it for the most part. It answers a lot of questions for me, basically.
It answers a lot of questions. I agree, but none of this can be proven. So it's a theory.
It can be proven from people that have had near-death experiences. Well, I can't. How do you make the link between string theory and out-of-body experiences? Is that the question?
Well, no.
Because I don't know how you would do that.
No, the question is, how can you, if you're talking about how string theory can make all these different formulations work, multi-dimensions, multi-universes, and so on, that are strictly theories. How can we use them with any certainty and say, well, based on string theory, it all adds together and we get an answer? Isn't that just looking for an answer and actually not being able to prove it?
I really can't. I can only postulate. I can't answer that question
Okay.
because I don't have. It takes scientific equipment. You have to have some sort of a model that you can prove something, and obviously I can't do that.
So where does the soul fit into all of this?
I'm sorry, what?
Where does the soul fit into all of this?
The soul is the multidimensional part of us. It's the part that continues after this three-dimensional plus time part of us gives up the ghost, which is us, basically.
But doesn't this all depend if, in fact, there are multiple universes or multiple dimensions?
Say it again? Sorry?
I said, doesn't this all depend if, in fact, there are multiple universes and multiple dimensions?
Yeah, actually it does.
So once again, it's a postulation.
Yeah. Well, life after death is a postulation.
You're right.
Except for people that have experienced it and come back, it's not a postulate for them because they've experienced it. So the rest of us are just left depending on their testimony. I'd never heard of near-death experiences until I got myself locked up in jail down in L.A. several years ago. And I had a cellmate who, we were locked in a cell overnight because we'd gotten there too late to be booked in, probably. And I've had a very colorful life, so that's part of it.
I can tell.
He starts telling me this story where he had gotten in a shootout with the Los Angeles police, and they had literally riddled him full of holes. And he says the next thing he knows, he's floating above his body, looking down at this police officer, taking the head of his dead body and pounding it on the concrete. And he remarked to me that it was sickening to him that the human race could be that bestial, that policeman would be doing that, acting like that. He then finds himself moving towards the proverbial light.
Right.
He identifies this light as God, and he knows that he's reaching the cutoff point, that he's going to have to make a decision either to leave this world or to come back. He looks back at his life. He looks back at that body on the ground, and his life coming to an end like that in this really ignominious fashion, and he just can't do it. He can't let this be his legacy. So he makes up his mind that he's going to come back. At that point, he loses consciousness and doesn't regain consciousness till like a week or two later in a hospital with all kinds of tubes coming out of him and sewed up here and there. He showed me the bullet wounds. He had bullet wounds all over his body. They had shot him to pieces, basically. So, did that answer the question?
Not really, but
Oh,
it's.
I got lost in the point. What was the question, actually?
We're going to go on to the next question. Listen, what
go for it.
are your final words for the X Zone Nation? You've got about a minute.
Thank God for programs like yours, and thank God for you, because this is the kind of stuff that people want to know. They want to know that there's more to life and more to this existence than just this miserable state that we seem to have gotten ourselves into lately. And as long as there are people like you that are willing and brave enough to bring it to the public, more power to you.
Well, my reasoning is very simple. There's 3 sides to every story. His side, her side, and the truth. So I try to bring as many sides to any given story to my audience and let them make up their own mind. I think that, and I've been doing that for 32 years like this, and it seems to be a formula that keeps working.
Cool.
Let our listeners know where they can buy your book again.
Say it again, sorry.
Tell our listeners where they can buy your books.
It's only available on Amazon right now. It's called The Lives, plural, Lives of Elijah Brooks. The first half could be considered fiction if you want. I got in a big argument with my publisher over this issue. The second half is testify before Congress, true, and autobiographical. And I tried to make it funny whenever possible. I've gotten some laughs out of it from people. So I think I wrote a successful story, let's put it that way.
All right, Elijah, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight here in the X Zone at X Zone Nation. Once again, go online. Elijah Brooks is his name. The Lives of Elijah Brooks is what you type in. Wow. What do you say, Craig? Well, that's an appropriate one. Send me an email, believer or skeptic, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back after the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. Don't go away.
Boys, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits, you go to school and learn the golden rule. So why are you acting like a bloody fool? If you get